Welcome to Blueprints for Brilliance Coaching Insights, a podcast by coaches for coaches. Our guests share their hard-won wisdom to help you grow your coaching business and create a life of success. So get ready to unlock the blueprints to your success. Welcome, everyone, to our newest episode. We're absolutely thrilled that you're here, and we're thrilled to have Trista Guertin here with us. She is a life coach, and she is from Canada. So welcome to the show, Trista.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So tell us a little bit about how you became a life coach, because I feel like life coaching hasn't really been around all that long. I know when I was young, there was no such thing.
That's true. I was a humanitarian aid worker. I was working with Syrian refugees and Palestinian refugees. I have been traveling the world for the past 20 plus years. I've worked in places like Angola, Sri Lanka, Yemen, and most recently Lebanon. And so I was traveling the world. I've traveled to over 78 countries, living all over the place. Obviously, it's very rewarding. It's very interesting. It allowed me to live in some really interesting, if not very challenging places. But I was able to travel and to experience different cultures and meet some amazing people. But it was also very challenging personally, emotionally, physically, security-wise, all the things. It did take a toll. And I spent many years struggling, like, am I doing the right thing? Do I want to continue this? Should I have a more normal life? What do I want? All the things. I was in a long distance relationship for a number of years, living in and working in Lebanon back in 2015, 2016, 17, I guess it was. I came across a podcast called the Life Coach School podcast with Brooke Castillo. And I started seriously listening to it in 2017. My life changed. There's an episode called Emotional Adulthood. I highly recommend it if anybody's looking for a little bit of guidance and help. But then I joined her program, Brooke's program, Self-Coaching Scholars. She also had a coach certification program. And I was looking at that, sort of thinking, well, this might be something I could do in the future, just because as a humanitarian aid worker, I wasn't sure. Like, I knew I didn't want to be 65 and living in Afghanistan or South Sudan, but I wasn't sure what that transition would look like. And so I thought, life coaching, because I knew the impact that it was having on me and how powerful it was. So I was keeping my eye on that. And then COVID. Found I had some time on my hands. And I thought, all right, why don't I take this certification? It will be useful for me personally. And then, of course, I was a manager and a leader at that time. So I thought it would be helpful for them too. I started the certification, started practice coaching on everybody, anybody who would let me. And I just loved it. I was like, this is it. Like, I just fell in love with it. So, that combination of looking for something different, knowing that this worked, and just the energy and the joy that the coaching brought me, I was like, I need to start my own business. I did that in the evenings and weekends as I continued to work for about 4 years. I left Lebanon in October, and I've been back in Canada ever since, coaching full time. So that's a very long story explanation, but that's basically it. I just fell in love with the tools and the skills that I was taught. It's so powerful. I know it worked on me. I know the transformation that it brings my clients, and I want to get it in the hands of as many people as possible.
I love that. Well, first of all, thank you for being a humanitarian and for going to all these places that really, really needed your help. That's amazing. But I totally get how that can create burnout. You're not going into happy places necessarily, with people who are surrounded by positivity. So yeah, it totally makes sense. It would take a toll.
Right. Situations varied. It wasn't always that difficult, but yeah, it really did take a toll after a while.
Totally makes sense. And Brooke Castillo, I'm a big fan of hers. I think she's
good.
Amazing. What a great coach, and has turned out. I've met many people who've been through her program, so I totally get the excitement and enthusiasm. I love it that you kind of landed into something. I feel like you had such great life events and exposure to life in so many different countries, and I can see that would have been a huge benefit to you.
It really has. And I was leading quite large teams. I was leading most of the time, they were national staff. So I was very fortunate. I was working with some amazing people, a lot of really amazing women, and just, able to share what I know and learn from them. And it's a pretty special experience, I will say.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about how you work with your client. I think there's a particular demographic that you typically work with. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So I'm mainly working with women in their 40s and 50s. I work with women who are feeling stuck and they are in a life that no longer fits them. Now, feeling stuck speaks to each woman in a different way. And they could be in a variety of situations. It could be that they're looking to switch careers. Once you sort of reach your 40s and 50s, you've been working in one area for 20 plus years, and you know that maybe it's time for a change. Maybe they've lost their jobs and they need to find something new. It could be a divorce. It could be the kids are grown. They have more time on their hands. And we sort of reach this point, at least I did when I turned 50. I have a lot of living still to do. And what am I going to do with this? And so it's helping people because I always say, feeling like you're meant for more, it's because you are. And so we have this nudge, we have this urge inside of us to see what's possible, to learn and to grow. But it's not easy deciding what that is. And I also see we're experiencing a lot of fear and doubt and overwhelm that keeps us stuck. We're not taking the action that we say we want to take, and we let that fear stop us. It's helping women to get that clarity around what they want and then calm, being with their emotions, not allowing that fear to overwhelm them and stop them, and then generating that confidence to take that action and move forward and create whatever it is they really want.
Love that so much. Yeah, I do feel like in your 40s and 50s, if you had kids, they might be getting a little bit older and you're finding a little more space in your life. And you are looking to, how am I going to fulfill that? What's next? It might not be a job. It might not be something as big as that. It might just be, I need to find, something that I love, that I feel like I'm contributing to the world, or it could be, volunteering, somewhere. I feel a lot of what your clients feel, that, you're kind of in that transition phase where you think, okay, now I'm old enough. I'm a big girl now and I can take control of, my days and my life and what's next for me. So I love that you're doing that.
It's interesting work because you do want to find something that gives you energy, that lights you up, that brings you joy. It doesn't have to be the career wise, but it can be in any area. But just getting in touch with that part of yourself and trusting yourself, go after that. And really, a lot of the work I do focuses on expanding our concept of what we're capable of and what might be possible for us. Because I feel like we sort of go through life and it's very prescribed and it's very conformed, and we're not taught to imagine bigger and bolder. And for me, I really want to see what is possible for me or what I'm capable of. This is the perfect time in my life to start really doing that and thinking really big and really bold and having fun.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. I don't think many of us at this age are going to become NBA players. There are some unrealistic things that you might want to do. But I also think that a lot of what we enjoy, what really brings us joy, we forget about or push aside, for many years. Like I said, especially if you have a family and you have kids, or even if you have pets, just kind of getting in your career, there's a lot going on. You're very focused. And then all of a sudden, you're in a kind of in a position where, oh, you kind of take your head out of the sand and say, oh, I forgot what made me happy.
You're completely right. And I see that a lot too. We are, I think, conditioned as women to be the caregivers, to put other people first, to be selfless, to do all the things for everybody else. And we sort of push that nudge and all of our dreams and whatever we even fleetingly may think may be interesting or fun, we sort of do push it aside because you do get caught up in all the things, right? So, yes. And I see a lot of people pleasing, not being able to set boundaries. And so there's a bit of work there to unwind a lot of those. It's a mindset, right? And then subsequently it's a behavior, but just really doing that work to reframe and to let go of some of those limiting beliefs that we have, the story that we tell about ourselves, what we make the past mean. A lot of us take the past and make it mean something about us and what's possible and our future. So one of the key pillars of my work is really to spend some time looking at our self-identity and concept, the stories that we're telling about ourselves, and getting out of victim mode some of the time, reframing, letting go of what's not helpful, and coming to a place where we're focused on the here and now and where we want to go.
I love that. I love that. So if somebody is listening to this and is feeling that, your daughter, that back and forth, that I'm not quite sure if I'm living up to my potential, what would be the first step you would tell them? What is one tip that you can give them to kind of get them started on the right path?
I think it's fairly simple, but it's just understanding that your brain is going to offer you a lot of crappy thoughts and you don't have to believe them. And a lot of them are just not going to be helpful. So it's starting to gain awareness of the soundtrack that's in your head and the thought loops that you have, and just being aware that they're not necessarily true and they're not necessarily helpful. There is a process to let go of them and start to shift. I do that. Again, that's one of the key pillars in the work that I do with my clients. But just becoming aware that you don't have to believe everything you think. It's not all helpful. And it is possible to shift away and think intentionally and on purpose what you want to think to move yourself forward. I see a lot of people, some of the thoughts that our primitive part of our brain is offering us is that we're not good enough, we can't do it, we're not cut out for this, it's too late. And there's a lot of self-blame, and none of it is true. One of the things that I really noticed when I started getting into the coaching space was that almost every woman presented with an idea that she was doing it wrong or there was something wrong with her. And I heard this time after time after time. And I realized this can't be right. Like, we can't all be wrong. You cannot tell me that every single woman on the planet is somehow doing life and everything wrong. So, this is very much a function of our brain. And again, it comes back to those crappy thoughts that our brain will offer us. So, you're not doing it wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. There's a reason why you're thinking the thoughts that you are. You don't have to believe them. Take them with a grain of salt.
That's great advice. And I also feel like I've learned myself recently to take a step back and be present. Whether that's just taking a breath and saying, okay, because you're so focused, going, 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 going. And sometimes you don't realize that, your shoulders are all scrunched up and your head is running in a bunch of directions and like things are feeling chaotic. And you just have to say, whoa, okay. Just stop, recognize that we're present, that we're okay, breathe. And then, okay, what's next?
I like that. Yes. And I think it's important. And with my clients, a lot of the work that I do is encouraging them to meditate, even just a few minutes. I find that gives me a great deal of space in my day. It helps me to recharge and just become calmer. I really notice if I'm not meditating, 5, 10 minutes even can make a difference. But I feel like it just helps me to relax a little bit, as you said. And then, some of the journaling work and the thought work that we do, it helps us to focus. It helps us to give us some perspective. And then we're not just being pulled in a million different directions, but we're very intentional and focused on what we want to create instead of just reacting to everything around us.
Yeah, you totally get in. It's so easy to get in reactory mode instead of, being active, you're reactive. And sometimes my business partner said, let's just do a brain dump. Sometimes when you're just overwhelmed, you cannot see forest for the trees, I think it is. Just take out a piece of paper and write down everything, every place that your mind is going. And sometimes just doing that, getting it out of your body and onto paper is like, whew, I just feel better for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the key things that I learned at the life coach school too, right? Is that process of just write, take 5 minutes, don't edit yourself, don't censor it, just write, just get it out. And it is like a little bit of a spring cleaning, just that release.
I love that. Well, you are doing great work. We are grateful for people like you who are helping people who need it. So tell everyone who's listening, how would you like people to reach out to you?
I have my website, so it's tristaguertin.com. That's Guertin. I also have a podcast. It's called This Daring Adventure. So that's also a website, thisdaringadventure.com. So you can find me there, and I have lots of great episodes available. And then I'm also fairly active on Instagram. So Instagram, I'm Trista V Guertin. You can find lots of great content there. So
Fantastic. We will have all of that and we will put it all in the show notes. So people have a nice, easy way to find you and just click on that. Last question for you is, if you could give the world one tip to make it a better place, what would that be?
I think it would be to learn how to be with our emotions. I think that's been one of the pieces that I've learned that has really changed everything for me. It's that we don't have to be overwhelmed with our emotions. They're not an emergency. And learning how to allow them and process them instead of reacting and resisting and trying to watch 10 hours of Netflix or eat a pint of ice cream so that, we're not in touch. And just taking 5 minutes, if you're particularly overwhelmed, annoyed, frustrated, sitting for 5 minutes, dropping into your body, and just breathing into that space wherever you're feeling that emotion can be life changing. It helps that to move that emotion through you in a way that produces a net positive effect rather than a net negative effect. So it's a simple practice, but just sitting for a few minutes and just allowing yourself to breathe into it and let it move through you can be some of the best work we can do for ourselves.
I love that. Well, Trista, this has been fantastic. You've given us so much great information and so many ways to get ourselves started on the right path. So like I said, we will have all your links in the show notes. But thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us today on Blueprints for Brilliance Coaching Insights. We hope you're leaving this episode with inspiration to take your coaching business and your life to the next level. If you found value in this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe and share it with someone else who you think might benefit from hearing it. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.